Good afternoon, and welcome to a Mitch'n and Mauck'n About the Cards podcast. I'm Mitchell, and with me from the Superstition Ranch in Arizona, where Thursday nights are dollar beer nights, it is the mouth of the West, Tyrell Mock.
What
Tyrell,
it is?
we're shooting this on a Friday afternoon. That's a little different. I'm a teacher. We went back for professional development this week. We had open house last night. You had some other stuff going on last night. So we're kind of talking about this a couple hours before the Yankee series, and we'll hit that later in the show. But let's jump right in. We got an action-packed full 9 innings for you tonight. Only 3 games since we kind of last talked a little bit. Man, bro, we go back and forth like they got a run in them, maybe. I'm going to give you this statistic, and then I'm going to turn the floor over to you. The St. Louis Cardinals in 2025 are responsible for 12.5% of the Rockies' wins this year.
Disappointing. All right. Again, you lose 2 of 3 to a team who came in with 29 wins, but
Home.
At home. Baffling. I've said it in this podcast a couple of times. I'm going to say it again. The Cardinals have a problem of playing up and down to their competition. You can gear up for the Dodgers and Cubs, but you can't gear up for the Rockies. I'm going to go on a little bit of rant here because this all boils down to leadership in that dugout. You do not have any leaders in there. And I'm not talking about your coaching staff. I'm going to talk about your players. They've lost that when they lost Molina in 22. Nobody knows how to win. Nobody's out there yelling at them to get a boot in your ass. Give it your best every single day, not just when it matters against the Cubs, Dodgers, Yankees, any other team that might keep you out of the playoffs. You were fighting to stay above 500 in this division other than the Brewers, this division was winnable this year. There's nobody knows how to win. There's nobody trying to win. I didn't see it when Don Tony was here. I didn't see it with Matheny. I didn't see it with Schilt, but I have seen this since Molina left in 22. All these just not motivating the guys, but there's no leaders. They've even came out and said it in the past that Nolan Arenado is a reluctant leader. Paul Goldschmidt's a quiet leader. Like, they don't yell at the guys. That's why they brought Lance Lynn back, to yell at people, to gay, hey, you don't know how to win. This is what you have to do to win. And it is just so frustrating that there's no leaders in that dugout.
But do grown men who are making millions of dollars need the rah-rah speech? You know, we've talked about it before. It works in high school to a point. It works in college. But professional athletes, that is your occupation. That's your job. Do you need a rah-rah speech? Oh, I'm a grown man. You're a grown man. I don't need someone to fire me up to do my job. I don't understand why they see leadership as so big in the big league clubhouse.
I don't either. I agree. It's frustrating that you should be giving your best all the time, but you can see it on a flyaway game on Sunday, half-ass effort, and you see it all the time. We're not going to run the whole base out, and it's just like, where is that effort? And I agree with you. No grown man should need a rah-rah speech. Maybe a little bit of at the beginning of the year, like, hey, we're going to be the best team, a little bit, and go with that mentality. But clearly nobody's giving anything in that clubhouse.
When you look at the position players, Contreras is kind of a fiery guy just based on what we see on the field, and we don't know what goes on behind the closed doors. But it's a bunch of young guys who lack 10 years of MLB experience, who've done it all, seen it all. We talk a lot about the great teams in the early 10s, 2000s, veteran teams with all stars, guys who kind of set the tone. If you read La Russa's book, Lance Berkman was one of those guys. Pujols was always kind of a quiet leader, but when he told them to shut up, they shut up. And Yachty was kind of his first lieutenant inside the clubhouse. They ran that entire clubhouse. Nobody, Mark DeRosa, who's the coach of USA Baseball and is a analyst on MLB Network, tells a Pujols story when he got traded over to the Cardinals in 2009. He was like, "Hey, what time's batting practice? Whatever time five wants to hit." Okay. What time's the bus leave? When five's ready to go? And just things like that. I mean, there's probably not a guy in that clubhouse right now who has that kind of pull. What time do we take fielding practice? When five wants to go out and get work?
And
Just
that's
things
something
like
we've
that.
said is there's no superstars on this team. You need your superstars to lead. And that was a superstar willing to lead, and you don't have that.
Right. The core is too young to have that. And I'm not sure if Contreras is that guy. I think maybe he tries to be, but clubhouses, and you've been, locker rooms in high school and stuff like that. I've been, locker rooms my whole life. Locker rooms are notoriously clicky,
Yes,
especially when you look at baseball locker rooms where there's 26 guys, football where there's 50 plus. You're going to gravitate towards a certain group. That's just the way it goes. And you got to wonder if there's a little bit of separation somewhere in the dugout with, Wilson's got around 10 years in the MLB. Arenado does. And the rest of these guys are like 5 and under. So they're probably, young guys who maybe like a certain lifestyle, etc. While the other guys, Nato's got a kid or two at home now. He probably wants to play ball and go home. I mean, I got a wife, you got a wife. You know what it's like when you get off work, you got to stop at Target, do this. He's still a professional baseball player. I bet his phone's still like, hey, the baby's out of diapers. You better hit the Target on the way home from the day game.
absolutely.
So, and that's just a difference of, lifestyles and stuff like that. And when we talk about those, middle of the tens Cardinal teams, all about the same range in their careers, life experiences, etc. And so maybe that has a lot to do with just overall clubhouse culture. Culture is a word used a lot in sports. But, well, their culture's good, their culture's bad. I have yet to be on a winning team where the culture's bad. I'm not sure how culture plays that big of a part in it. Or I've never been in a place where, hey, we were 0-10, but man, our culture's good. It's just one of those things. Like winning kind of makes it seem like your culture is good.
You're absolutely right. And I think reading Tony's book and what you hear from the players that work with Tony is that pulled the leaders aside and set the expectation for the year early and wanted them to hold the rest of the players accountable. So you're right. You might have had this click, but he talked to that leader to go about this click. This is what I want from them. So I could see where they need to do that again and bring that around. But that's every manager is going to go about their own way and how they're going to do things. And I think that's also a thing when if they're going to replace Ollie next year, they have to think about is there's going to need to be an experienced manager with this team.
Do you think, and we're running a little long here, at 37, 38 years old, that is also an issue with Ollie in that clubhouse? So, and it is a younger team. We've said it a couple times, but they almost see him as a peer and not an authority figure.
I
Where
agree with
LaRusso,
that
was
100%.
in his mid 60s at the time and had, of course, had a track record. You already had multiple World Series rings and appearances of that last 2011 team. But you think Ollie being a younger dude who, still is going, he's seeing, down at the bars in St. Louis and Soulard on the off nights. Do you think that, they brought him in who's going to relate to today's player? They see him as big brother and not dad, as a part of the authority figure goes.
100% to think that way. I mean, that's the way I'm same age as Ollie, and that's the way my guys look at me. I mean, I am dad to them because I'm there to assist them and help them, but I'm just big brother. That's how I'm treated. So I absolutely agree. But I'm not afraid of putting a boot in their ass, though, too. So I'll talk to them in that way if I need to. But yeah, dude, I think you hit a little bit of the nail on the head right there because he has
And
no
that's
track record.
right. And that's something to definitely look at if there's a move made in the next year or coming. If they go with a more veteran presence, an older guy, or if it's back to where there was that trend in baseball where everybody wants to hire the next genius. You see it a lot with the NFL when it comes to hiring coaches. The old guard is no longer a thing. It's all these 30-plus-year-old guys who are considered offensive gurus. And they have a little bit of success in the old heads, like your Belichick's, guys who lifers can no longer find jobs because everybody wants to hire a whiz kid. Nobody wants to hire an old crusty guy who you know what you're going to get. You want to be ahead of the curve on that hire. But like I said, we've gone really long on this segment. We'll
We
jump to
did.
the next one, top of the second here. MLB Pipeline released their minor league rankings this week. No surprise at the top, the Los Angeles Dodgers, Minnesota Twins at 2, Seattle Mariners at 3, and this one kind of shocked me. The Milwaukee Brewers at number 4. A small market franchise is figuring things out. Best record in baseball, fourth best farm system. St. Louis came in at 12. We're talking off air. I think that ranking is skewed because of JJ and Liam Doyle and maybe even Quinn Matthews. I think it's top heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Tyrell, kind of what do you think of the ranking of the being 12, which is top half of MLB right now in their minor league rankings?
I'm excited about it, but I'm in total agreement with you that top heavy, and also two of your top 10 are catchers. What are you going to do with this? Like, you you clearly have too many now, which we've always said you can't have enough pitching, but clearly you can have enough catching, too much catching. So they're good. Something's going to change here. Hopefully we get something in return. I don't need, so see how Takayo Roby can be in the top 10 when he's out with Tommy John surgery right now. I don't know how that happens, but whatever. I am going to say number 11 on that list of the top 30, Baseball America's top 30, is Joshua Baez, and he is my sleeper. I'm really excited about outfield guy, and I want to see him in the bigs. And all of these guys are projected 26, 27, except for like Ryan Mitchell. There's a Padilla and Rhinel Rodriguez. He's projected to be 28. So
Rodriguez is only 18 or 19 years old.
yeah, so you're not bringing any of these guys up until next year, year after that. So maybe you've got a little bit of the Memphis Mafia back, but everybody below them is not at that level. So I think we're going to see some cool moves this offseason behind Bloom.
Maybe more frontier that prospect list. Yeah, looking at it myself, we were kind of doing research for a later segment. The next wave of prospects really aren't coming until 28. Next year, Bernie had a thing on his pod today about next year they could possibly compete, but the real rebuild starts then. MLB is basically prepping for a lockout strike in 27, and we'll talk about that later, sometime on our show. So really, you're not looking until 28 to compete. I mean, that's 3 years from now. I mean, that's a lifetime from
Yeah.
now. And speaking of prospects, as we kind of head at the top of the third, getting to the point where we need to look at maybe some September call ups. Mo has gone on record as saying it's not going to be JJ and it's not going to be Quinn. So with the rule, you can go up to 28. Used to be up to 40, and this would have been the time. It would have been nice to have St. Louis go up to 40. Traditionally, they've never used those slots for prospects. It's always been reinforcements. Even when the team was successful and they could use 40 guys, they were only bringing up 5 or 6 dudes to give them something to do, because it wasn't like they weren't just going to be to set the bench. So when you look at the list, Tyra, I'm going to throw some names for you and kind of get your thoughts. One of the possibilities is probably the least sexy option, in my opinion. They just activate Nolan Arenado of September 1st. Church is an interesting outfield prospect. I think we're going to see him possibly. And then Jimmy Crooks, the catcher. Let's talk about the infield guy, or the batting guys first, the position players, and then we'll talk about the pitching possible call ups. The other one I did not write down in our rundown, who was a possibility, probably the second unsexy one, Michael Ciani.
Yeah, I could see them calling him up rather than Church. Or Church and Crooks.
Well, one's there. You can call up 2 guys, and traditionally one's going to be a position player and one's going to be a pitcher. So from that list, what are you thinking? Like, if you had to throw some money down, rank them for me 1 through 5 between Arenado being reactivated, Ciani being the call up, the second least sexy one, Crooks, Church, or an other that we haven't talked about.
I think you.
What about Blaze Jordan, who's only unfortunately hitting $150 right now? So there's your 5. Give me some money odds.
5 being the least likely is Blaze Jordan. 4 will be Crooks. 3 Church. I wasn't even thinking about Ciani, but I think you got Ciani. And number 1 is going to be Nano be reinstated. I think that's what's going to happen with that. There's just no other possibility, because DeWitt's not going to eat that money.
No, he refuses to. They owe him almost $30 million next year. they're not going to waste a penny of it. And then the last part of this question, I only had two pitchers. Gordon Graceffo, which is probably the most likely. That's probably the safest bet. And then Chris Roycroft, who's had an up and down year. But they're both in Memphis right now. Didn't really see anybody else that they would be willing to kind of take a flyer on pitching down in Memphis right now.
I think you're probably right on those two. And they might actually do it all the time. They use that shuttle and be like, hey, Graceffo, you're up this week, Roycroft, you're up the next week. So I can see them doing both of those guys that way.
And treating that 28th roster spot as the shuttle.
Yep, exactly.
Well, speaking of the shuttle, they're going to need it as we go to the top of the fourth. If you watched the ball game the other night, I believe it was Tuesday night, right before we did our show right before the game. Matthew Libator, man, that kid was all straight guts. But when Ollie came to get him after the fourth, his face was red. I know it was hot, but he just looked frustrated, tired. He's a guy pitching on nothing but huevos at this point. I don't think he's got anything left in the tank. His arm is done for the year. And so my question for you is, is he being shut down? Because when you look at Monday starters, which is his turn in the rotation, it is listed as TBA. And then who's going to take that spot? They got to cover his turn for another 6 weeks.
I think you have to shut him down because if you think potentially he's going to be one of your 1-2s going forward, you can't burn him out this year like we did with Waka in the early stages of his career. You just can't do that to his arm already. So if you want him to be who you think he's going to be, you probably need to limit him now, which is totally baffling to me about the Cardinals. Why don't you limit the innings at the beginning of the year and then build them up till the end of the year so you can use them? And they talked about this 6-man rotation they were going to do for a while. Did it for all of a week? So that would have
Got a
saved a
couple
lot of
pop
time.
starts in there earlier.
Yeah. And they were like, oh, Matz is going to start. And then, nope, we're just going to leave him in the bullpen. I think if you're smart, you shut him down. I think you give it to Kyle Leahy and you just make it a bullpen game.
I agree with that. So I went with Leahy as my choice. With September call-ups coming up, we say it was going to be Graceffo, but there's a couple guys down in Memphis who could probably come up to 8 innings. They need to go ahead and give Libby the arm fatigue IL designation, shut him down, let him rehab, let him rest, and get him ready. There is not, as of it is 3:30 on August 15th. There is not meaningful baseball right now. Now, if something happens in the next 2 weeks where they can get within a game of that last wild card, okay, maybe we look at it. But with right now, they're playing out the string, so to speak. You're not going to get anything out of it. You've seen what he can do. Let it go.
And there's absolutely no shame shutting him down. I'm fine with it. Like, we shut Wainwright down for how many months so he could win 200 so his arm could get back up to action. I have no problem with it because I want the longevity out of Libby. I have no problem with the move if you shut him down.
Yeah, he's a guy who doesn't really project out to be an ace, but he could be a 2-3 guy in a rotation. And that's really, say what you wanted. The Cardinals of all he had was number twos as far as pitching goes, but you still need a two. Not everybody can be an ace, and especially left-handed. He could be that guy who wins you 12 to 15 ball games every year. That's a really good pitcher, and you're going to blow him out in a meaningless season, and maybe even a second one next year. Let's take a quick look around the majors. Don't have a whole lot of news and notes so far than the Brewers are hot, 12 in a row. Big series for them against the Reds. And if you're a Cardinal fan, you're 16 out. You hope the Brewers sweep and you can play some meaningful ball against the Yankees. There's that word again, meaningful baseball. And then jump above Cincinnati and maybe make it when you're headed to Florida next week to play Tampa and the Marlins. And then my other one, it is Players Weekend. Several years ago when they started this, they were wearing the nicknames on the back. They've got away from that, but now it's wear what cleats you want, customize your bat, do all kinds of fun stuff, show you got some personality. As MLB tries to promote stars and these guys actually have personalities. What do you think, Tyrell? Do you like the Players Weekend thing?
I do. I think it's fun. It does bring out finally their personality. I like to see that. And I wish they would do more of these rather than these kind of just one-off things. Like, let's do it a little bit more often than we do. I know we do Father's Day, Armed Forces Day, Mother's Day. Let's do this a little bit more often. I think it brings a lot more fun to the game because in the end, we might be serious about this, but this is a game and it's supposed to be fun. Let's get back to a little bit of the fun.
There's some cool stuff I was reading on MLB.com. Bobby Witt Jr. is using the a bat that looks like a burger because he loves Whataburger. There's a couple ones, paying homage to their family. Freddie Freeman has got a bat with his kid's name on it. There'll be some cool cleats. And of course, podcast fans, once this weekend's over, MLBauctions.com, you can buy it all. There it is.
Yes. Yeah.
There
Yep.
it is.
Yep. There you go. You're exactly right. Right there.
That was attached to the bottom of the article I was reading. So I'll be kind of interested to see what the Cardinals come up with and how they talk about it. Our prospect rankings, as I was kind of doing the middle of the order here, only one guy on this list excites me. Let me run down our list and then we can talk about who that one guy is. We're doing 25 through 21 today. Chase Davis, outfielder, projected 26 arrival. Brennan Davis, a left-handed pitcher, 27 arrival. Cade Crossland, left-handed pitcher, 28 arrival. There's another one of those long-term guys. Kenny Hunter at 22, an outfielder, not till 2030. And then Daniel Ortiz, first base, third base guy at 27. I know there's only one guy on that list that you're excited about, Tyrell.
That is Chase Davis. I like him. That Carlos Gonzalez uh, comp that he's been given. I like his swing. I've listened to several podcasts that are like down on him, but I think he's good. He's still young. I like him. He's got a sweet swing, got some speed, good outfield. I'm an Arizona product at a UA. I'm really kind of high on him. So we always do this though as Cardinals fans. Like we look at outfielders, who could be the next core group, and I'm doing it again with Baez and Chase Davis. But I like that if you have both of those, you have a right-handed hitting Baez and a lefty Davis that could really carry your team for the next. And they're both projected in 26, 27. I could see a future there.
Right now in Double A, where he's playing, he's hitting 232, 9 home runs, 42 RBIs, slugging percentage only at 701, 239 in the show right now, but he's showing signs of life. But what gets you excited is the power's at 50, the speed's at 50, and the arms at 60. Those are all plus tools.
Tools. Oh.
I've projection, the zip estimate on this for a full season would be 8 home runs, 47 RBIs, and hit about 277 in a full minor league season. So that's okay. But if he can get to 20 and 60 at some point and just be consistent, because once again, since the passing of Oscar Tavares, this organization has just never developed an outfielder, and they've been chasing it ever since.
You're 100% accurate on that aspect. That's a great one.
One after another, after another. Walker's showing signs of life, though, hitting over 300 the last month plus. Maybe, again, and only 23 as well, same as Chase Davis. So maybe in the next couple of years, there could be that consistency where, left to right, every 5 days, it's going to be the same guy. Let's do our fun topic as we go to the seventh. What is the greatest what if in Cardinal history? And we could do this all night long because there's been some crazy stuff here. You go back to the 80s. What if they didn't trade Keith Hernandez? What if old man Bush would have given Steve Carlton the extra, was it $50,000 that he asked for? And instead of the 70s being a dumpster fire like it is now, there's probably another World Series or two. I'm going to give you two questions. I'll give you the question and then your answer, and I'll give you the second one. The first one: what if Rick Ankiel didn't melt down in 2000? What does that decade of 2000, 2010 look like?
You have a couple more championships. I think you have another championship. McGuire doesn't go out like he does. You have oh man, I'd have loved to
Because the
see it.
top three of your rotation then is Darryl Kyle before his tragic passing, Matt Morris, who was a top third pitcher in MLB for a few years, and then Rick Ankiel, who was probably had the best stuff of anyone in the major leagues at the time.
You go. How do you do that?
Combine
Because
that with a
Ankiel's your
Pujols
ace.
arrival.
And
I apologize for interrupting
yes,
you,
yeah.
but
And you
combine
have
that with a
JD
Pujols
Drew at that
arrival.
point too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do they move JD Drew for an Adam Wainwright?
No, at
If you
that
have
point
a
you
Rick
don't.
Ankiel.
You don't. You keep him. Maybe not for Wainwright, but you might if he's now. Granted, we all know that Drew is a head case and probably one of the most hated guys in baseball history, just because of that. You don't move him for a pitcher, or you move him for a different pitcher other than Wainwright. Wow, dude, you
Because
go Ankiel, Morris, Kyle, or do you go? Because man, I'd go Ankiel, Kyle, Morris, throw him on because Kyle wasn't a hard pitcher or hard thrower. He was that crafty. God, his curveball was so good.
But you look at the butterfly effect then. If Ankiel is him, like if Rick Ankiel's winning 18 plus games a year, do they sign an injured Chris Carpenter after the 2002 season? Do they need a trade for a Steve Finley who helped them? A Woody Williams deal? Does that get done? And then, of course, do Danny Herron and Derek Barton get shipped from Mark Mulder? Then you have, then you have a Matt Morris leading a rotation featuring a Rick Ankiel and a young Dan Herron, who was a solid big league pitcher. And it changes your whole projection. Is there
But
another
you still have
championship or
pools
two?
coming up.
And you still have a young Pujols.
Mm-hmm.
And then a young Yair Molina later in that decade. I mean,
Maybe if
that's an
Yachty had to
interesting.
come, that's an interesting question. Wow, that's a great what if. I would
Just
love
because
to
of the
know.
domino effects.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, can we
And
get
then
a
this
time
one is
machine to go figure this out?
that'd be great. And of course, this one is one that's been debated 100 times by 100 different people. What if after the 2011 season, Pujols resigns? Let's say he gets 10 years, $250 million. Let's just call it whatever it was. He wasn't insulted by the offer that he was brought to the table. He resigns, and we get a declining Albert Pujols from 2011 to 2021. What does that decade look like then?
You still have a dynasty. I think you win probably 2 more championships, probably. Maybe at least one. At least one. You'd have won the 13 series probably with Pujols in there.
You don't sign a Beltran because you won't need him because Bergman will still be in the outfield, or Alan Craig would have replaced him full time by then. You've got peak Yadier Molina still. You've
Still
got
got
a
Holiday.
healthy Carpenter and Wainwright for a couple of those years. But the question is, then it comes contract time for Yachty and Wayno. And hey, let's remind you, this is a small market franchise, brother. You can't pay everybody. Do Yachty and Wayno leave? And we watch the decline of Albert Pujols because what benefited him in Anaheim was he could DH. And the NL didn't adopt that until post COVID. So what does the back half of this decade look like? And then my other one,
Like it did already.
right.
Yeah,
And then
yep.
my other one is if Pujols is in the fold, is Mike Matheny the manager? Or does Pujols have a little sway in, we wanted Tito Francona, but does his boy Jose Oquendo get the job?
I've always wanted Oquendo to be a manager, and I thought he's always gotten the short stick of not being the manager. Boy, that'd have been kind of fun to see him
He
as
did. He
manager.
did get the what we call in the business. He got the courtesy interview when
Yeah.
Matheny was hired. They interviewed three guys: Matheny, Tito, and Oquendo, who got the. Well, you've been on staff for 15 years. We're gonna just look like PR wise that you got the interview.
Probably
I
not an
mean, that's a
analytics
domino
guy.
effect in itself.
That is. That really is. I don't think you hire Matheny. I think you do go more veteran because you're going to want that leadership from him. I don't think Matheny comes in, even though that was the trend at the time. Everybody was hiring a first time manager only because Craig Counsell knocked it out of the park so quick. So everybody took that on there. It's kind of like the football did with McVay. Everybody started going, oh, we want the next football genius.
So I mean, and put it in the comments, on our TikTok or our YouTube page. What do you think is the best what if? Because there's some good ones,
There
and
really is.
we'll probably hit this again later this winter when there's not a lot to talk about. If Tavares didn't pass, then what does that do to Martinez? And it doesn't start the snowball effect. What if Mike Schilt didn't have philosophical differences? We got to work that in every show.
Every
And going
show.
back to the MLB topic real quick, did you see they've caught the Dodgers? The Padres have caught the
Padres did,
Dodgers
yeah,
in
I
the
saw that. I
standings.
was like, I honestly would love, because I know it doesn't play out this way like it used to, where the wild card plays the number one anymore because the one gets a bye. But I would love if it was the Dodgers Brewers and the Brewers ended up knocking out the Dodgers.
I think LA's the most hated team in the MLB, taking that spot from the Yankees mostly just because they can buy whatever they want. And
And
it's
dude, that
frustrating.
Ohtani deal is ridiculous. Like, that's so backloaded like that. You know he's worth more than that, and that's just another example of, yeah, why we hate the Dodgers.
Our second fun topic is we kind of are kind of rounding third tonight. Give me a random Yachty or Molina backup catcher.
Took a kick from Johnny Cueto to the head that ruined his career, Jason LaRue.
He never played again after that day
Never, yep, never, yeah.
because the concussion was so bad. Johnny Cueto would probably still get booed in St. Louis to this day
So
if
would
he
Brandon
walked in.
Phillips.
That's one of my favorite Yachty highlights when Phillips taps him on the bat. He's like, "You're not my friend," and then here we go, and that's what started it all. That's what
Mm-hmm.
started the whole thing. The old Donnybrook. I had three of them. Enier Diaz, who might have been the worst, because I think Yachty caught 150 ball games that summer because Diaz was so bad. Matt Wieters, who was an all-star at one time in his career for Baltimore, left-handed. I love the idea of a backup catcher who's left-handed with some pop. And then they say AJ stands for A Jerk Przinski, but his teammates love him.
Yeah,
Nobody else does, but his teammates love Przinski.
isn't it Przinski that crashes into that guy at home plate and then they get into fisticuffs like they're
Yes.
throwing? That is AJ. I liked Przinski. I thought he was a guy. I loved his moxie. Matt Wieters was a number one prospect at one point, and I thought he was going to be a guy. He had a solid big league career, and I liked them bringing him in too. Einar Jesus, forgot about him.
And then one more for fun, Cody McKay,
Oh yes,
who
Dave
may have got
McKay's
the job
son.
on nepotism.
Just a tad, Hey, I always thought
Finish
that
it
was
up.
going to be what was with Chris Duncan, but with Dave. But Chris actually had a pretty good career, so I wasn't like, after I saw that, I was like, all right, this is all right. He's okay.
Chris was my favorite Chris Duncan thing was that once his career was over, he became a pretty big St. Louis media personality. I got to meet him one time. The dude was he was a man's man. Like he dipped tobacco. He was talking about man sodas. Unfortunately, he passed away, I think, because of a brain tumor. But Chris
Same thing his
Duncan was
mom passed
awesome.
away from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I absolutely loved Chris Duncan on the radio. He was my favorite player. I had the T-shirt jersey, which I actually lost in a Memphis hotel, so I had to go back to the ballpark and buy one. That Memphis Econo Lodge still gives me PTSD. The final topic tonight. Let's talk about the Yankees. This should be a huge deal. Your two crown jewel franchises, Yankees and Cardinals. They're on Fox tomorrow night for a bigger game, but it's not Sunday night baseball. Not a ton of hype about it as it should be. Tonight, Sonny's looking like he's on. Oh, excuse me, Plante tonight against Gill. Gill's 0-1 with a 7.27 ERA, 10 Ks. Couple, probably one or two spot starts. Plante's been terrible the last few times out. The lineup just dropped. Donnie Wynn Burley, Herrera, Newt, Gorman, who's playing third base again. Walker, Pages, Scott. Quick thought on tonight's game.
Over under 2 home runs for Aaron Judge.
I'll take the over
I will too.
all day long.
I think Palante gets rocked.
Sadly. And then
Yeah.
what do? Tomorrow night, Sonny Gray, your best chance for a win. Max Fried, though, going for the Yankees. That's going to be a tough road to hoe, especially a tough lefty like that. And then Sunday afternoon, Will Warren against Miles Michaelis. Potential rough series here with only one guy you kind of trust to take the ball. But after this, you got a week in Florida against Tampa and the Marlins. Cincinnati's got Milwaukee. There's a chance. We talk about a lot. There's always a chance. But entering Friday night, looking at the wild card standings, so we've given up on the division long ago. You're 3.5 out. You're half game behind Cincy, And then when you look at the Mets schedule, they play Seattle, who's a pretty solid team.
You could
Realistically,
get
if
some
you play
ground
good
made up.
baseball, this could be down to a game come Sunday.
It could be. You're absolutely right. It really could be, and that would make Sunday's game even more demoralizing when Miles Michaelis breaks his previous record that he set with 6 home runs, and they hit 7 on him.
How many weeks do you come down? Is it the end of August? 2 weeks? We'll be doing our show live together in the same room for the first time ever. First time we've been in the same room in 2 years. I'm pretty excited about that. The A's are in town that week. We'll probably skip the short hop this weekend. We'll hit one on Tuesday. For the Mouth of the West, Tyrell Mock, I am Mitchell Jenkins. This has been a Mitch'n and Mauck'n About the Cards podcast. Follow us on Spotify, follow us on YouTube, drop some comments on the TikTok, and we will see you on Tuesday.
See ya.